And now Jamie Smith joins us, the candidate in the House of Keys general election for Garff. You obviously dabbling in local politics as such. Dabbling's not the right word, but you've been doing that for some time. And what made you make the jump?
So I've been commissioner for about 4 years, deputy chairman during lockdown, chairman during the Laxey floods, and now currently deputy chairman again. So I've been really involved, but it's time consuming. I've got a challenging job in the finance sector at the business park, so it's very difficult to do the commissioner's work real justice. So what I'd like to do is step up to the full-time representative role.
Okay. Big area, Garff.
Geographically, very big area, very rural, but then you've also got Laxey and you've got a lot of Onken. So you've got a good mixture, and I'm hearing that on the doorstep.
Oh, I was going to ask you, what are the things on the doorstep?
So Onken people feel they belong to Onken. They can't understand being in Garff. I think perhaps that was slightly overplayed to get the population of all the constituencies right. They've also got issues with some of their bus routes, circular bus routes that have been cut. It's not actually that easy to get from some bits of the Onken into Onken village to the library and doctors and things like that. So whereas if you go to Laxey, there's probably flooding and sewage treatment works are top of their lists. And then everyone else has got the usual of climate change absolutely on almost everyone's agenda, it seems, and some variation on potholes, speeding or parking.
The usual suspects.
Absolutely.
So let's park that one. And national items when you got on your agenda, what are you going to be thinking about?
So I'm cautious, working in the finance sector, have done for many years, cautious about the G7 and G20's 15% minimum corporation tax rules. Worst case scenario, and it is worst case scenario, if we don't diversify our economy, then we'll probably end up going cap in hand to the UK and or EU, and we'll lose our independence because they'll insist on us not having the fiscal freedom that we have now. But as long as we diversify the economy, and I think we're going in the right direction, and I'm hearing about even more.
You've got ideas yourself?
E-gaming, digital.
E-gaming's like one that's it's all one bag.
There's a bigger digital area which isn't just e-gaming. So there's one of the Department of Enterprises groups is the Digital Agency. So I've had lunches with the outgoing chair, and they've got some good ideas. It's around blockchain, it's about e-gaming. It probably shouldn't be pigeonholed. It seems like the infrastructure for the companies is in place and people are happy to come here. What we do need is skilled people with the correct skills, and I think there is an aspect in education of making sure we have the correct skills for the skills shortage, and things like housing to make it an attractive place to live in. It's a little bit of improvement here and there on what is already a lovely place to live.
So when you hear about these schemes, I mean, let's say Laxey for flooding, I mean, that's a big amount of money required.
Yes, so I mean, it's difficult. You've got to offer people that primary protection, and so there's still plans, I gather, in the pipeline for the seawall protection. It won't be a big horrendous thing that we first imagined. It wasn't particularly well sold to us. In fact, it will be relatively discreet. The river flooding is largely okay. What I'm getting across the Lonnon, Mackle and Laxey is the flooding coming off the hillsides. It does seem to be a concern. Inundates the gullies and the culverts, comes roaring down, if you know, Minorca Hill area, Glenmona area where it comes off North Brule. And so we need to have some tree planting, because trees absolutely soak up lots of water. The Victorians had engineering where they had large, almost like swimming pool sized hollows in the uplands that just slowed the trickle of water down, because it's the speed it comes down that it inundates. It doesn't matter if it's over a day or so, it's coming down within minutes. That's what the problem in Laxey was.
Global warming based, I mean, these things are going to get worse, aren't they?
These things are going to get worse, and we have to try and protect against them. So we really need to cut back on these large developments. As a commissioner, seeing some really big properties, planning applications for on the hillsides, overlooking Mackle area, overlooking Laxey area, and they take up such a large amount of the soil, and then you've got a driveway and things like that. Now, one lady was showing me her driveway is porous, and so the water does soak away through it, which is a brilliant idea. Didn't realise you could do that. So we have to mitigate it. If we can mitigate them, then I think we can cope with the climate change.
Okay.
In that respect.
Some of these big items, I'm thinking like the big tickets with the prom or Liverpool landing stage. Do you have any views on how the money's being spent and things like that?
In my opinion, we're absolutely right for having a capital projects team that's where the expertise lies, and they're looking after procurement, and they're the experts in running this. It seems that the actual contract aspect of it isn't particularly tightly written, so we're hearing about contractors being able to pull out and go on to another job and things like that. So I get the impression this is probably going to happen. It's not just my idea, but a capital projects team who effectively are the customer departments. Education want to build a new school. They go to this capital projects team and say, look, we've got sign off from Treasury, we've got the money, please can you effectively be clerk of works for us, and you take it off our hands. Then you have a small team of experts.
Have you been a fan of this government? Was this what's made you stand because you've had frustration?
It's frustrating. That's the first thing they say when you become a commissioner. I've dealt with lots of civil servants, lots of MHKs around the island, not just the two in Garff, and on the whole they do a great job, and it's a great place to live. And my mantra is really, we're just improving everything, 1% here, 1% there, improving that on the housing side, on the increasing bus travel so that parking's less an issue. If we push these things, it is a lovely place to live. Nothing's truly broken, but we could push these things. So no, it's not a problem with the current administration that made me stand. It's just that I think I've got something to offer more than the voluntary role as a commissioner.
So your skill set is where, if you got into government, where would you feel best used?
Okay, so it's balanced. I think it's probably fair enough. I'm working in the finance sector. I've worked most of my life in the finance sector. Early on, I actually worked in a housing association sector for insurance, specialised insurance for housing associations. So that's part of my policy on the housing side, because of a bit of knowledge there. I've worked in local government as well early in my career. So public sector and private sector. I'm an IT guy. I'm a database architect, I think is the phrase. So I'm capable of reading a spreadsheet and a balance sheet. So I think some people think perhaps a minor role in Treasury is a bit dry. But
enterprise as well? Yeah.
Enterprise, exactly. I mean, that's very popular. I hear a lot of people say, I'll work in enterprise. Yes, if I can use my skills, I'm very happy to. But I do wonder whether Treasury might be where I can really add some value.
And you're happy to work with inside government?
Absolutely.
To have a job, to do something? Because obviously the pay structure is all going to change and no one has to do anything more than be an MHK, which I know sounds, probably haven't put it the best way, but you could sit back more, or you go forward.
I'll be taking a pay cut, whatever.
Right.
Not massively different, but it will be a pay cut for me, so certainly isn't an incentive. The pay of an MHK isn't an incentive, even with the, as you said, they've changed the structure now. First and foremost, I feel I'm a local politician, even as an MHK. My primary objective will be looking after the people of Garff. But I have some skills which I think I can offer, and so I'd be very happy to work in a department, but I'm not looking to be a minister. That's not my
that's my next question. I mean, at some point you might, though, wouldn't you? If you got in and you worked in a department.
If I was convinced that was how I could add value,
why not then? Why would you not want to be a minister?
Because I still regard myself as primarily a local politician, even as a full-time MHK rather than a
And do you think that can
voluntary.
take over too much time, basically?
I think there's a lot of people, you've just said it's a large constituency. I think they have a lot of issues. I think there's a lot of issues that never come to light. I've been to a lot of the surgeries that the MHKs hold every 2 or 3 months, and some of the issues are really, heartbreaking, some of them, and they don't get into the newspapers or on the radio, and they need sorting out. People need help. It's people who don't know the system or don't feel capable of sorting it out for themselves, often because they're ill, and that's part of the problem, is that they're dealing with the health service and things like that, and that's what a local politician should do.
And would you see this as something you're going to stick to? I mean, if it didn't work this time, would you go again, or what would happen in the future?
I would never say never again about standing again if I was unsuccessful.
Yeah.
But I've got a really good career. My company's been very supportive, which is lovely to hear. Age-wise, I've got options. I could stay in my current role. I could go again for MHK, but I'm happy where I am. Absolutely, very driven. I just haven't got the hours in the day to give my 9 to 5 job, which is often a 9 to 7 job, as these jobs often are, and the commissioner work, especially being deputy chairman and chairman. It's not just the 2 monthly meetings, there's site visits, there's talking to the staff, make sure they're happy, they've got the resources they need. So it's a big role with the deputy chairman and chairman of a local authority.
To finish with, ask everyone, who would you like as your chief minister?
Right. So I am pretty much dead against a public input into that, because he or she has to be a team leader. They've got to cajole and mentor council ministers, but also the backbenchers. Absolutely, I'm convinced that is their primary role.
You give us a name or not?
I'll give you two names, and then I'll give you a preference.
If you,
I think experience and skills-wise, it's Alf Cannon or Chris Thomas, and if you push me for one name, it would be Chris Thomas.